If all goes according to plan, a Houston-based aerospace company will land the first U.S. spacecraft on the surface of the moon in more than a half a century.
IM-1, Odysseus lunar lander, separation confirmed.
The spacecraft arrived in lunar orbit yesterday. It will try to touch down near the moon's south pole this afternoon. If successful, it will become the first private spacecraft to land on the moon. And joining me now is Dan Riskin, CTV's science and technology expert. Dan, thank you as always for joining us, and a fun, exciting day ahead, isn't it?
It is. It's been a dramatic couple months around the moon. I feel like I've been talking a lot about these landings that are coming up, and a lot of them have failed. I mean, even the successful ones have had slight failures. The most recent Japan landing, they did land on the moon, but they landed on their side, so it wasn't exactly perfect. And before that, Russia had a failed landing. Japan had a failed landing. The USA had a proposed lander about a month ago that never got to the moon and ended up burning up in Earth's atmosphere. The moon is hard to get to. And so at 5:30 Eastern today, it's hoped that this spacecraft is going to have a nice soft landing on the surface. But it ain't done till it's done, as they say.
And they'll be keeping a close eye on it because it's also landing in shadows at the South Pole, which I guess makes for its own challenges.
It does. And originally the plan was to land this in a quote-unquote easier part of the moon, but NASA's involved with this. It is a private company, but NASA has a bunch of instruments that are part of this mission. And what they ultimately decided is, look, if NASA wants to send people to the South Pole of the moon, that's the Artemis plan, that's a place we need more information about. So they changed the mission as they were designing it, and they decided to shift gears and make this landing a South Pole landing. So this is going to head for an area close to the South Pole. The NASA instruments on board are going to measure how much dust is kicked up during landing. They're going to measure the position of the spacecraft as it's coming in. NASA has the opportunity here to test a bunch of their devices without having their own mission to the moon to test them. So it's a great cost saver for NASA that way. And then the private side is really fun too. There's a piece of the spacecraft that's gold colored, is actually wrapped in a fabric that is from Columbia Sportswear, and it's the same fabric they use in some jackets. So they're kind of getting some promotional stuff out of this and helping pay for the mission that way with their sort of big advertising bucks, I guess. But the most fun piece of this, the thing that I'm really looking forward to, is that there's something called the Eagle Cam. As this thing's coming in for a landing, it's going to basically throw a selfie stick out the window. And as they're going down, this selfie stick is going to make a video of the landing as seen from some distance away. And so I don't know exactly how they've worked out the gyroscopes and all the pieces necessary to make that work. But if it works, we'll eat like kings. It's going to be a glorious piece of footage, but we'll see if it happens.
And they're also, the big thing too, they're looking for water, right? I mean, or ice. That's the other thing they're searching for there. And how important
H2O,
is that?
Because the beauty of H2O is it's got O in it, which we breathe. So that's nice. If you want to set up a lunar base, it'd be nice to not have to bring oxygen tanks from Earth all the time. It'd be nice to have your own source of oxygen there. H2O, you can make hydrogen peroxide, you can make water, you can make all these different things that are useful not only for keeping humans alive, but for making rocket fuel. Using nothing more than oxygen and hydrogen, if you have the right kind of processing materials in place, you can turn those into rocket fuel. And so it's so expensive to take anything to the moon that if you are making a moon mission that requires you to bring in stuff like air to breathe, that is way more expensive than if you can find a source of air right there. So the South Pole is the leading candidate as a place to get harvestable H2O formed as ice that's under the surface. So the hope is that these Artemis missions are going to lead to a renewable way to do that so that astronauts in the future can go there and just get what they need in place.
And how long are they hoping, before we go, how long are they hoping this lander will last?
Well, it's not clear exactly how long this lander is going to last, but basically once the landing happens, a lot of the big mission will have been completed. And part of it is that once you land on the moon, you stay on the moon, right? And so it's going to become something of a artifact for humanity. And as in that spirit, one of the items on board that I like most is a sculpture by the artist Jeff Koons. Now, Jeff Koons is a famous sculptor. He's best known for making these metallic balloon animals that you may have seen in different art galleries or in different they're quite well known in the art world. He has made a series of 125 moon-shaped sculptures those are sort of glued onto the side of this lander. So if it lands there, there's going to be a piece of art sitting on the moon waiting for all of us so we can go look at it someday. And I hope someday we get to.
Absolutely. Dan, always a pleasure talking. I'd love to talk more about this, but we're
Thanks,
running out
Roger.
of time. Thank you as always. Dan Riskin, CTV's science and technology expert.